I know you're not here to hear me talk anymore. You're here to talk to Nathan Baesel and David Stieve. Come on in.
Wait, which one are you?
I believe you're here, Nathan. I believe, David, you're right over there.
Okay. Glad we got that straightened out.
Yes. Welcome. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for being here at Sinister CreatureCon. It's always a delight to see you, Nathan. And it's been wonderful getting to talk to you, David. So I'm very happy that you're both here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
I know there's lots of people here who are big fans of Behind the Mask. Before we get into lots of those questions and things like that, there's the elephant in the room that I do need to bring up, which is, other than me, which is Scott Wilson. My condolences on your co-star passing. I'd like to hear some of your fond memories of him on set before we ask any questions about the rest of the movie.
Way to start heavy, man. Jeez.
I know. I'm going to lighten up afterwards.
Thank you. And thanks to you guys for being here, by the way. Thanks to Tim and everybody from Sinister CreatureCon for putting this on. It's so great that we're able to have these moments, interact with the horror fan, the fan base and the genre supporters. So thank you guys. Wow, Scott. I didn't get a chance to be on the set with Scott. As a writer, I had the opportunity to be on the set some of the times, but that's not typical. But I did have a chance to meet Scott, obviously a number of times over the years, and he became a very good friend and a mentor to me. I think that, the best way I can sum Scott up is the last time I had breakfast with him, which is about a year ago, which is too long. So if you have somebody in your life that you've been meaning to hang out with and spend some time with, and you say, I'll get to it, do it tomorrow. But I was having breakfast with him, and I was lamenting the end of a 5-year relationship I had been in, and sort of going on and on about how, she was so great, it didn't work out, and maybe we made a mistake, and she was blah, 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 and hemming and hawing, and Scott was sort of eating his eggs and listening and nodding. And I talked myself out, and then Scott kind of in his droll said, well, the reason your relationship ended is because you're both pussies and you're afraid of commitment. And went back to eating his eggs, and that was it. I was sort of like, all right. But that was Scott. I mean, he had an uncanny ability to just cut through whatever noise you were given at him, and he would just put his finger right on the heart of the matter. He was a really great man, so he will be missed.
Yeah, he created the sense in the movie that there was a great long relationship between Leslie Vernon and his character, and that's because there was a great relationship between his character and Leslie Vernon, and that was because Scott Wilson showed up on day one and brought all of his heart and just unpacked it for everybody. Just as a younger actor, seeing a professional who's put in his dues and could, for all practical purposes, just show up and clock in, clock out. I mean, that guy didn't do it. He didn't care to. He wanted to be all there, and he wanted to make himself all available to the people that he was working with. And you just couldn't get a classier example of how to work professionally, and you couldn't get a better example of how to be fully human in an art that tends to not feel very human a lot of times.
The beauty is that through his performance and through his art, he gets to live forever with us, because we do get to continue to see him. And I know I needed to bring it up off the bat. Let's get to lighter subjects. I'll be the asshole now and then bring up, so as we were discussing before you came in, it's still listed that there's a sequel on IMDb. And we know there's nobody at that door, David. We know that there is a huge, I don't know what happened. He just disappeared.
He melted.
We know that there is a want and a desire, obviously from the two of you, obviously from the fans. What else can we do to help them?
You're doing it. I mean, the ball keeps rolling. It's the funniest little movie. It just keeps on, the snowball keeps getting bigger and bigger and rolling faster and faster because more people fall in love with it and tell their friends and family about it, and it keeps on growing. And
I agree. I mean, it's frustrating for us as well, and for bless you. For Scotty Glosserman too. I mean, it's just something that it's been a passion project for him for a long time, and I think that what you can do is, as Nathan said, keep doing what you're doing, keep getting the film out there to more people. Make sure that you're introducing it to somebody who hasn't seen it. Be vocal about it on social media. You know the drill. But there is also a graphic comic series by an incredible artist named Nathan Thomas Milner. You've probably seen his work and you didn't know it. Nathan did a six-part graphic novel adaptation of the sequel script. So the story is out there. You have to go to nathanmilner.com, I believe, or Rebel Rouser Art or something like that. You have to look around for it. But I think that the decision that was made a while ago was, instead of waiting for the sequel to be made, instead of waiting for the financing to magically fall in place, which is the holdup. It's always about the money, unfortunately. We decided that it was time to just get the story out there. We know there's lots of source material, other things. People will show up. It's not like I think Scott got to a point where he sort of said, why are we sitting on this? Let's get more Leslie Vernon universe stories out there. So they did that through the graphic novel, and we're always kicking around ideas to kind of keep those stories going. There's a lot of it living in my head. Leslie Vernon's been very busy. There's a Taylor Gentry story that I'm dying to tell, which she's been doing with her life and her sort of Laurie Strode type evolution. So the stuff is out there, and there's a desire and a drive, and we're trying to get it to you. So keep demanding it.
Now, the two of you have also recently worked on, I believe it's a short called Wait For It. How much of that can you talk about? Has that come out yet? Is that available that people can see, or is that still being worked on?
It's being worked on. It's in sort of a post-production hell. That was the first film I've ever tried to direct, so there's been a lot of learning curve on that one. But it's a companion piece to the Leslie Vernon universe. The short film is about a survivor girl type character like a Taylor Gentry who has survived her first onslaught from a unknown killer, and it's basically between film 1 and film 2. And so I wanted to have a little exploration of what's it like for a girl she knows the guy's going to come back, but it's not next Halloween yet. It's sort of what happens, and the joke is what happens on Saturday the 14th, right? So it's an exploration of a survivor girl trying to sort of deal with her life after the first, but knowing the guy's going to come back. So it's sort of an exploration of paranoia, and so there's a little bit of a tie-in to Leslie Vernon character, that universe. There might be an appearance by somebody, but it's.
I don't know if there's anybody over there either, Nathan.
But that's another example of one of the stories we're trying to get out there to keep the universe alive.
Well, and I got to show it to some people who, like what you said, keep showing it to people who haven't seen it. I make sure that, you haven't heard of this movie? Here, we're going to watch this together. And I was asked, why isn't this being talked about with other genre-defining, genre-introspective horror movies like Scream and Cabin in the Woods? So where did this idea come from? Where did this and Wait For It, where did you decide as a writer this was the direction, the spin you wanted to put on introspective of horror?
Right now, Nathan's sitting there thinking, I have to hear this story again. You want to tell it?
I don't think I've ever said anything that you've heard that you've been, oh boy, I hope I hear that all over again.
Do you want to? No,
you don't want to. Go. Just get it over with.
I was having a phone conversation with my dad. I was sort of new to LA and moved out from Wisconsin, and I was sort of in that dad mode where he was sort of like, how are things going? And what he was really saying was, when are you going to quit this Hollywood dream and come back to Wisconsin and get a real job and get on with your life? And so I was like, it's going okay. I mean, I'm trying to write. I'm trying to do some screenwriting stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I went to bed that night with that insecure, like, God, what am I doing with my life? Like, am I doing the right thing? Is this my calling? And Halloween was playing, which is, I think my second favorite horror movie. And I sort of fell asleep, and I had this thought while I was falling asleep, like, God, I wonder if Michael Myers ever wondered if he was doing the right thing with his life. Like, did did Jason really, really want to do this? Is he questioning himself? And it sort of blossomed into this analogy of anybody who's trying to do a creative pursuit. Are you doing the right thing? Like, if you want to be a musician or a professional athlete or a doctor or whatever, it's that moment of everybody sort of says what you've chosen to do is crazy. You should do something real. And it just blossomed into this idea of like, God, what if there was a slasher killer who was like trying to break into the business, but we see him mowing his lawn, and that was kind of the inception for it. And it was the fastest script I ever wrote. I wrote a draft in about 14 days. It went through a lot of evolution and a lot of work and development with Scott Glosserman. And then, of course, when Nathan came in, and they brought a whole new level to the character. But that was the inception.
Now, the beauty of it is this very well-crafted, wonderfully told story. And then when you hand it to the actors, these performances come to life. So I know we've talked about some of the ad-lib lines, and we've talked about some of the scripting. Where is that line? Where is here is the horror script, here is the horror performance? And is it a combination that makes it? Is it more the script side of where do you guys fall on that, I assume?
Yeah, we've been trying to hammer that out a little bit between the two of us. We've had a debate, a public debate, page versus stage. He'll take the page, position, and I'll take the stage position, and trying to figure out what is that immeasurable, unquantifiable overlap between the intended creativity and the inspirational creativity. Those two kind of blend together to make the work that you end up seeing. And so, where's the overlap? Where are the conflict points? Where are the easy intersections? I don't know that we've come up with any concrete answers, but the script did a lot of the work already by just creating a lot of that easy feel, a natural feel for how people talk and how people interact in a relaxed, casual way. That was already embedded in the script, so there really wasn't a whole lot of need to kind of dance around and do a bunch of actor hijinks, because it was already built in.
I think I will say this about Nathan and Angela as well, and everybody, but I think when we were doing the casting, Leslie Vernon was intended to be a super stomper, Kane Hodder, Nick Castle type. That was it. That was the guy. I figured we would just get some big hulking stuntman and he would be Leslie Vernon.
I figured that they were going to do that too, by the way. I thought there was no chance that I was ever going to get the role. I thought it was stupid that I was even auditioning for it, but...
And that's exactly the beauty of it. What Nathan brought to the character, we went and got in the room, and he brought this charm to Leslie Vernon, which is the Leslie Vernon you guys all know and love, that was never existed in the script. It really didn't. So that's all Nathan. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about is, as a writer, you can only do so much. I liken it to you raise a child to about 18 years old, and then you do your best, and you send that child out into the world, and you hope that everything you did sticks. But ultimately, those characters are going to be interpreted by actors and by directors and by editors and everybody else. So you sort of bite your nails and you hope that your kid's going to be okay. What Nathan did with Leslie made this movie. He doesn't like to hear anybody say that, but it's absolutely true. Without Leslie Vernon being this guy, it is just another quirky, indie film that I think would have just gone away.
There is definitely an honesty to your performance that I hold up there as far as amazing horror performances that I don't know if a big hulking guy would have brought to the table on that one.
It would have made a lot more sense in a lot of ways. I mean, I've joked about it in the past, but it's not really a joke. I think that the movie would have been better commercially, would have had more commercial success had it gone the more... the intended route of, a big hulking, massive, kind of faceless, mindless machine, that would have been more understandable. It would have been more gettable, I think, for an audience. But I think the movie that we have now, it stands up to multiple viewings. Whereas had we gone the intended route, we might not have had something that you'd be interested in watching more than one time.
I think it would have
registered, and then it would have kind of gone away. And This way, I don't know, it's something else.
I did tell you weren't going to get a word in edgewise, because now I got to respond to that and say that when what Nathan and Angela brought to Leslie and Taylor exposed a love story, and I don't know if you guys agree with me on that, but Rise of Leslie Vernon is at its core, sort of its base DNA. It's a love story, and had it been a big hulking kind of brooding stuntman guy, I think that character would have been much more antagonistic toward the audience and to Taylor and to the crew. And I don't know that the chemistry and the dynamic that you see between, Nathan's Leslie and Angela's Taylor would have existed.
Well, I think it's beyond, at least in my opinion, I think it's beyond just with Taylor as a character. The rest of the crew for the documentary, there's a performance that I think is often overlooked of yours in the film, which is where you're in the orchard and you have to snap the neck.
Yeah.
And he pulls the mask off your face and he's begging, he goes, Leslie, I want to see you. I want to see your face.
Right.
And the look on your face being very much, there's the killer who needs to kill, and then there's the pain of, I kind of like this guy. And I think as an audience that comes across because we feel it as far as we always want the killer to lose, but we really like you. So there's our dilemma as an audience.
Yeah, that's an interesting moment because it's the only time that Leslie's in killer mode without the mask on. And we've made real concerted efforts that if we were doing the documentary style, portion of it, he could have the makeup on and everything like that, but the mask wouldn't be on. That was the only time that you actually see him as the boy with the mask on. And then it comes off and he's in the killer mode. And I found that a really interesting moment because the audience has been making friends with Leslie for a good long while of the movie. And that seemed to be the moment where the audience was put into jeopardy because their relationship with this guy, if it hadn't been up to that point, was definitely going to be challenged at that time. Seeing him do without the mask on.
I very much liken that moment to the moment where Norman Bates gets the wig pulled off.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's the realism of killer versus human who became the killer. And just a beautiful performance of yours. I do want to ask, because I know horror fans in particular, we can be, how do I use it? Rabid. We could be a rabid bunch of people as far as our devotion. I do need to ask both of you, what are some of the strangest things a horror fan has ever brought to you, given to you, had you do, done for you?
Oh, man.
Don't worry, they're not here.
Where is this going to be broadcast?
Just on a little place called the internet. It's fine.
You go first.
There was a guy in Janesville, Wisconsin, which is a small town, kind of near where I was born, who out of the blue got a hold of me, and because we had a screening, I got to be the local boy makes good and bring it back home to Madison, and I worked at a movie theater in Madison, and we had a screening there, and it was such a great moment. And this guy had sort of befriended me on Facebook. And I said, make sure you come and visit, say hello. And he came to meet me and, shook his hand and was like, hey, check it out. And he pulled up his jeans and he had gotten a Leslie Vernon tattoo on his calf. And I was simultaneously just so overwhelmingly amazed and then just terrified. What are you doing? It's the craziest things. The movie hadn't really been a thing yet. So I think to me it was shocking to see that Leslie as a character had resonated with somebody enough to get their face tattooed on their body. That's not really a bad thing, I guess, but it was shocking for me at that point.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, somebody showed me their tattoo and asked me to sign it, and then they tattooed over the signature. That was pretty wild. But I mean, in general, no, everybody's really cool, and it was the only real exposure to horror that I've had has been through the movie. I've watched a few films here and there, but I'm a little scaredy cat, and it's not a genre that it's not my go-to. But when I first started going to cons, it made sense. The people made sense. The community made sense. Everything just felt like it was warm and welcoming. it's felt like home ever since.
I know as far as something I wanted to bring up, because I don't know if you guys have seen this for a while, or specifically you, Nathan, as far as strange things fans have done. Does this look familiar to you?
Yeah.
Can you share what this was about? What happened with this? If you can see this, it says "Meet Leslie Vernon Party."
Yeah. That was Matt's 40th birthday. Yeah, he's a Texas fan, and he invited me out for his birthday.
Is he here? I don't see
his
Matt.
40th
Is Matt in
birthday,
here? No, he's not.
and he flew me out, and I went to a dude's 40th birthday party, and signed stuff, and had a ball. My brother lives not too far away from him, so I got to wrap a little family into it too. But
awesome.
Yeah, and he had all the posters made up and just everything. It was
I just thought that was a super interesting story, so I had to make sure everybody said, you can have Nathan at your 40th birthday.
I guess that's the bottom line.
guess
Is if
that's
you want
what
me
it
at your
is.
40th
I
birthday
guess that
party,
happens.
you got to fly me out there. You got to put me up. But yeah, I'll come to your 40th birthday.
That does make me actually. It makes me realize that I think what has been really cool is just the amount of fan created art.
Yeah.
And action figures and toys and dolls and Funko Pops and unique artwork and posters. It's just
You come to
amazing.
our tables, and there's a bunch of one of a kind stuff that we've got on our tables. It's just stuff that it's a shame. There's no way I'm going to sell any of it, but it can't sit in a box collecting dust. It's too good, I got to show it off.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest thing. Is it's not weird. It's just that's the best part of this. Is just this is so organic, and no studio's paying attention to any of this. But there's just more and more Leslie Vernon stuff.
All
in the
for
world.
love.
It's cool.
All
It's
for
so
love.
Great. So.
Let me open it up for questions. Do we have some questions for Behind the Mask, the Rise of Leslie Vernon?
David, when you were writing it, were you worried legally that you couldn't reference Michael or Jason and what you would do if
Ooh, that's
they
a good
said
question.
you can, like, got to call him Mickey or
Never heard
something?
that question.
Yes. Well, I was worried about that. And Scott and I had a long conversation because in one of the earliest drafts, we had, before we had really realized the universe, we had a scene where Leslie was sitting playing poker, and it was like the dogs playing poker picture. It was Jason in his mask, and Freddie with the scars, and Michael in his mask, and Leatherface is in there. And we're like, how are we going to do this? And we realized there's no way in hell. We're never going to get clearance to use these characters. So we had to try to sort of, Jason became Jay, and Michael became Mike. And, we were obviously very much, you were all aware of what it was, but we did. And it was good. It was the right decision. That would have been a cheesy, horrible interpretation. There's no reason that they would have had their masks on while they were sitting around playing poker. But yeah, it was a real thing. And at some point we just said, well, screw it. I mean, great problem to have if, Universal or, New Line or whatever comes after us. So
And there's no legal issues with saying Mike Myers.
not yet.
No, I was about to ask. My follow-up is, has anybody ever contacted you and said, hey, you should have called us? Or have you...
It's one of the things of flying below the radar, I guess.
I guess that's a good thing.
No.
I saw some other hands start to raise. There we go.
I was just curious, kind of along with that, where the movie's so meta and it acknowledges all the other franchises. If you guys ever got the opportunity to do a Leslie versus somebody, who would you want him to go up against?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to match wits with?
I'll fucking kill them all of them. All of them. Yeah, one at a time, all together. Yeah,
One big steel cage match.
that'd be all right.
All right.
I think, to me, what's more interesting is the idea that you could see a little bit more of the mentor dynamic. Like, I would love to see Leslie getting a little assist from Michael Myers. I would love to see, and there is a crossover with Hatchet. I mean, there is this, I'm blanking on his name.
Crowley.
Victor Crowley. So Victor Crowley and Leslie would be a pretty cool pairing. Demand it, get it
That
out
would
there.
very much be the big hulking versus the intelligent design. I like that. Yeah. There we go.
I'd like to see is, the big thing right now is the Friday the 13th video game. That would be awesome if they made an online video game of Victor. I mean,
Yeah, do that.
A Leslie Vernon video.
Yeah.
I like that Nathan just gets to turn and look at you and go, get to work.
Do it.
You do your job. I'm going to do mine. I saw some other hands start to go. Oh, maybe I guess. Oh, there we go.
Related to the idea that the film is characterized by a lot of sort of meta understandings of this genre of film, what do you think it is about those tropes or sort of repeated characters that resonates with audiences who are horror fans? I'm speaking from someone who's a little bit both on the outside and the inside.
I think Stevie can speak more generally to things, but something that in particular was interesting to me to play with for the movie was the kind of philosophical approach to how do I be okay with selling this as just the greatest job ever, you know? How do I have the same kind of enthusiasm about slashing as, you know, a dude who's I don't know, saving lives or whatever, you know, whatever and I realized out of the script, it's referenced in the script, but if we're taking a kind of big picture look at things and we're stepping back, you know, 30,000 foot elevation view of things, you have to have this in the world, in the universe. There has to be a force that's about celebrating death. That's about celebrating pain. That's about celebrating torture and just as you have to have those other elements on the other end of the spectrum, and they're generally represented, but the stuff on this end of the spectrum isn't usually celebrated like that. It's usually something that we kind of try to avoid looking at or thinking about, and so it was really helpful to think of things in terms of, oh, I'm doing the world a service. I'm performing a public service. It's not anything that I need to be ashamed about or apologize for. It's something that deserves celebration, if you just skew your thinking enough. Yeah.
I think for me, the bigger picture there is that I have a theory that horror is the oldest human story. I think that a horror story, when we were, you know, learning to communicate with each other, I think the first things that humans communicated to one another were, hey, don't go out there. If you go out past the edge of that fire, if you go out on, you know, too far from the cave, there's stuff out there that's going to eat you. And I think that that's an instinctive response in humans that, you know, what is Michael but a boogeyman? And, you know, what is Jason but, you know, a saber-toothed tiger? You know what I mean? These are the oldest human story is horror. It's older than love, older than politics, older than drama. So to me, I think that that's what draws me to horror. I think that more specifically to your question, Scott and I together wanted to do something that gave credit to the fact that the horror fan community is incredibly smart, and the horror fan community also has an incredibly adept ability to switch from being serious and engaging with the horror to having a great sense of humor. Horror fans have great senses of humor. It's incredibly frustrating that horror comedy doesn't sell in Hollywood. You're idiots. It's the same fan base. But I think that we wanted to be respectful of the horror, and the only way to do that was to hit those tropes and to do it respectfully in a way that you guys would recognize it, appreciate it, and then laugh at it.
I do appreciate the respect and the scene with the little girls playing jump rope and everyone on the street. And like, I'm not the most observant person, but what else did I miss?
Oh, there's a few.
I know there are, but it's been a while since I've seen it, and I know that that one stands out to me most.
There's a Hellraiser box in the background.
Sitting on an end table, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Just sitting there. Not even addressed.
Yeah, and Eugene's, there's a scene where Eugene stabs a knife into a cutting board, which I believe is borrowed from Friday the 13th, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. And and his car. Anybody recognize Eugene's car? It's a pretty recognizable Delta, Delta. Yep. So I think I don't know what other things are buried in there. The music.
Oh, yeah.
There's music. When Leslie's putting his makeup on, there's music. The music playing in the background is from The Shining.
The Red Rabbit Inn.
The Red Rabbit Inn is in there. Yeah. Got to watch it again. Watch it again.
Just keep watching it.
But where did the Paradise Lost mic come from?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows.
We don't know.
Nobody knows. We were partying one night near the end, and somebody said it, and it was really, really funny, and nobody can remember who said it. And the last day of shooting was in a library, so I thought if we can't work in Paradise Lost Found It in a library, then we don't deserve to be doing this. Somebody brought the book down, and I shoved it in the stack, and we shot it.
We all vaguely remember joking about it at the, partying the night before, but it's a gift from the gods. It manifested itself into the movie.
But that's definitely a prime example of, as we discussed earlier, what you were saying, the page versus stage, that was never a page item.
Yeah, well, this was an unusual movie in that there was a lot of leash. I was given a lot of leash to run, and I will run it out. I will, as long until you yank that chain back, I'm going to keep on running. And the leash just kept on getting longer and longer and longer. And so with something like that, I had, which is you don't get this opportunity ever, hey, let's completely reconceive this scene than how it was written. You don't get to do that, you know? So just the fact that I got away with it was pretty awesome.
I could literally talk to both you gentlemen for hours. Actually, Nathan, after how many times that I've hosted a panel with you, I have spoken with you for hours now, thankfully. But unfortunately, our time this time is at an end. So I want to give a round of applause for Nathan and David from Leslie Vernon. You can also show your appreciation by being able to go to their tables. They've got 8x10s to autograph. They've got merch to get. You can support them because if you go to their tables and talk to them more about the movie there, that brings them back here for more cons. So you can support them by getting them back here by buying their stuff. So please do. Once again, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all for coming out.